Hello, my name is Anne, your guide to when animals get even. If you like bloodthirsty animals getting back at humanity, then I will tell you it is a good idea to subscribe now for more. Now, today's animal has some thoughts about those pesky roadrunners. It's coyotes. We'll start in Alberta, Canada. This happens to be a series of coyote attacks in Calgary. There were 3 different reported coyote attacks. Now, Al was outside with her child, who was getting ready to go for a bike ride when she felt a stinging sensation on her leg.
I felt something grab my leg. I didn't know what it was.
The video captured from her home surveillance camera shows the scary scene in HD. A coyote appears in the top right of the screen, and then it attacks.
It just jerked and tugged really hard. The bite kept getting harder and harder. I just couldn't get it off.
That stinging quickly became a searing pain as she turned to see that a coyote had latched onto her. It was biting down on her upper thigh, and, it's safe to say that it's understandable that her first thought was, I do not believe that this is happening to me. How is this happening to me right now? We've all been in situations like that, right? Her first instinct was to shake it off. And that didn't work because that just made the coyote sink its teeth in deeper. In the end, because it wasn't able to take her down, the coyote just kind of gave up and left. But she had to go to the hospital because her wounds had to be stitched. Of course, she had to do the whole rabies vaccine thing. Following that is a 60-year-old woman who ended up in the hospital after a coyote bit her outside of her home. What's really weird with this story is that every single article mentions that there were 3 attacks. 3 attacks. Everyone agrees. But they only ever talk about Al and the older woman. I cannot find any information on the 3rd attack. I don't know that this 3rd attack really exists. Everyone's saying there's a 3rd attack, but no one will tell me what that 3rd attack is, so I don't know. It's a conspiracy by Big Coyote. I don't know. What I can tell you is that this particular coyote was tracked down. Yeah. Tracked down and removed permanently. Not my favorite ending, but one required based on the coyote's behavior. See, the city did try to haze the coyote. Basically, you do a bunch of really unpleasant things and the coyote associates people with unpleasantry. And this coyote showed no reaction to the hazing whatsoever. It had 0 effect. It was just immune to hazing. So in these situations where a clear and present threat to the public exists, the decision is made to humanely remove the threat and prioritize the well-being of the people. It was what had to happen. So I just want to know, do you have any personal coyote stories? They're a really nifty urban animal, I think. I know that most people either find them frightening or find them very pesty. I think they're cool. Anyway, I had a close encounter of the coyote kind. I was driving home from work one evening, and it was like something out of a movie because it was standing in the middle of the street right under the street lamp, so shining down on it. It's dark. It's a single coyote illuminated on the street, but it scared it away really fast as my car was coming up. So it was creepy that it was that close to my house just because I have pets. But I'm also very, conscientious whenever I'm outside at night with my pets. Because, dogs gotta pee. Let me know in the comments if you have any crazy coyote stories. Now in Louisiana, we have a military coyote encounter. Yeah. These were National Guardsmen who were in Fort Johnson, which is near Kisatchie, I think that's how you say it, National Park. And they were there for training. So it's pretty fascinating because it was so unexpected. Because usually when they're doing training exercises, they get a briefing that tells them what to expect and this, that, and the other. And I guess no one had recently gone through the area. to warn them about coyotes? I don't know, but it was not something they thought would come up. The running hypothesis is that they inadvertently encountered a den, and, you know, coyotes are pretty territorial about their dens because that's where they live and where their babies live. And that prompted the aggressive response from the coyotes. So as a result, these soldiers, at least 6, were attacked. And game officials came out with an assessment stating that at least 2 to 4 coyotes were involved. Okay. Now, the guys, you know, they're training with blanks, which is common. But what is frustrating is there's no information on how exactly the soldiers got away from the coyotes or how the attack stopped. Game enforcement ended up neutralizing a coyote to send for rabies testing, because you can't do that unless they're, you know... So that implies that, like, the soldiers didn't have, you know, with any of them, because if they had, game enforcement wouldn't have needed to do that. So I'm like, okay, what? I mean, I understand why the military doesn't want to reveal their coyote weaknesses and coyote attack vulnerabilities to, like, the national stage. I get it. I also don't think that another country is gonna, like, create a coyote attack strategy, because they're a North American animal. So, what really happened? How did the soldiers stop the attack? I don't know. I don't even have a theory on how they stopped it, because, like, there's so little information to go off of. What do? There's nothing to do. I can't find information. Maybe one day they'll declassify it for me. You know, like the CIA does with their creepy projects? Maybe they'll do that one day with the coyote thing. I don't know. I just want to know the story. What happened? How did they get away from the coyotes? Did they have to punch them? Did they just run really fast? What happened? First world problems, right? The next animal attack is in Canada again. And I will say this one is a doozy. This story is the first recorded adult fatality by coyotes in North America. Another preface is that even though there were supposedly witnesses, they didn't see the actual attack as it happened. So the details surrounding how it happened are limited, but all of the before and after is very clear. So let's get into it. This happened in Cape Breton Highlands National Park. Mitchell is going for a hike on her own, and as she's going, an American couple passes by in the opposite direction. They're headed back to the car park. This is the beginning of the Skyline Trail. For reasons unknown, Mitchell ends up doubling back. As if, you know, maybe she forgot something and is going back to her car at the car park. We don't know why she started doubling back. We can only make assumptions, which is dangerous, because I'm like, if she doubled back, maybe she felt something was wrong or saw something that she was like, don't like this, and wanted to get away from it. We don't know. We don't know if she forgot something or if her danger sense was tingling. You know, it's theorized a coyote was even stalking her at this stage, but the fact of the matter is we just don't know. The couple that was going the opposite direction ends up seeing 2 coyotes coming towards them on the road, and they step to the side. And the coyotes pass right by, 0 hesitation, 0 fear, no concerns, no bothers given. One of the hikers ends up actually catching a photograph of them. So, we got that. We got a photo of our suspects. Now, after all of this went down, a research scientist ended up actually, like, taking a closer look at those photos and concluded that, like, these coyotes have an astonishing lack of fear when it comes to humans. In fact, their body language almost seems dominant. Like, they know, like, people are afraid of us. We're better than them. So it is believed that these are the same coyotes that Mitchell came across 5 to 6 minutes later when she was doubling back. So the 2 hikers are at their car and they hear blood-curdling screams and animal howling. Great. So they immediately call from a telephone box at the car park to report, like, something's going down. There is danger. I wish we had that call on, like, a recording. Well, we don't, but we should, because, oh my gosh, can you imagine? Oh, how freaked out would you be? Oh my god. Okay, sorry. I'm getting all worked up again. So 4 other hikers show up at the car park, and the couple tells them exactly what they heard. And at least 3 of those 4 hikers are young men who are like, we're going. So they go. And as they're going, they're starting to find personal items, presumably belonging to Mitchell. They're finding her keys. They find a small knife, and obviously it's thought that maybe she tried to use this to defend herself or something. We don't know. Find a small knife. They find torn pieces of bloody clothing. They find a lot of blood. Like a lot of blood. They find Mitchell herself. She's laying near some trees, and she has coyotes around her. Yeah. Creepy. So these 3 male hikers, they charge the coyotes, which, like, man, even the army was struggling with coyotes, so props. And it takes multiple tries before the coyotes finally back off. And they don't regular back off. They creepy back off. So they give the guys enough space to, like, form, a safety perimeter around Mitchell, but they're, like, watching nearby. They're close enough that the guys can hear them growling. So Mitchell was actually awake. She was able to talk to the hikers, but I couldn't find anything about, like, what she said to them or what happened. We don't know if she tried to explain what happened with the coyotes, because, again, almost every article that I could find. So not only were these, like, really scant on detail, but a lot of them just kind of, like, ignored the actual events and instead focused on why did it happen, which we'll talk about, but it's like, that's not the important part. The important part is that, like, it happened. The important part is our victim is alive. The important part should have been, what did she say? The important part should have been, what were her last words? So these coyotes don't back off until finally the Royal Canadian Mounted Police show up, and one of them shoots a shotgun at the coyote's face. Well, they left then. Mitchell had been bitten over most of her body, and it was pretty clear that more than one coyote had been involved, very clearly. The most serious wounds were one on her leg and one on her head. So, And by the time she got to the hospital, just shortly after getting there, she did pass due to blood loss. So I'm imagining that the bite to her leg, it didn't sever the femoral artery, but it probably caught the veins that are fed by it, if that was what... if the most serious wound was on her leg, that's just kind of like a logical... It's a leap, okay? I don't know for a fact, but I'm just guessing that would be what makes sense. And there were so many theories as to what happened. Experts were scrambling for answers because this was unheard of. Some people were thinking, like, okay, maybe it's hybrid vigor. Maybe these aren't pure coyotes. Maybe they're crossed with wolves. Maybe they're crossed with dogs. Whatever the reason, hybrid vigor, okay, they're more aggressive. They're more dominant. They're acting weird because they're not typical coyotes. It's a pretty good theory, but it didn't pan out. Another theory was that maybe Mitchell inadvertently provoked them. Maybe she got too close to a den with young, or maybe she tried to feed them, or maybe somehow she's at fault. Which, again, didn't pan out. So the closest they got was a multi-year study where they did a deep dive on the coyotes in this specific park, because it was this specific area that this happened. Because they also found there was a history prior to this attack of less severe human-coyote conflict. But it had been on the rise. So they do their deep dive. And it all tied into their diet. See, the coyotes in this region had to adopt a dietary change. The extreme climate conditions are forcing their usual prey, smaller animals, little rodents, shrews, rabbits, birds. Apparently they even eat snakes, okay? all of those things were like not there anymore. They'd left, they were gone, and the climate was too extreme for them to stay, which meant the only thing that was left was moose. As a result, the coyotes, it's adapt or die. They have to learn how to hunt moose. And they do. Now, this in itself, not to undermine the tragedy that's happening, but the coyotes learning to hunt moose is in itself really crazy and cool. Okay? Because coyotes are about the size of like what we would consider a standard medium-sized dog. And I mean on the smaller side. I'm talking like 40 pounds is their version of large. Yeah, a moose is a 700-pound animal. So, you have a pack of coyotes where 40 is their maximum size. Mostly. I mean, like, give or take a few pounds. Taking down a 700-pound animal because they have no other choice. Wow. It's, for them to be doing it with such a success rate is crazy. Because of the size difference, because it's not their historical prey, because they haven't been doing this. This is new for them, and they're doing it and they're succeeding. That's wild. That's so crazy and so cool. Unfortunately, this dietary change means that they view larger creatures, including humans, as potential food items. I mean, they used a lot of different scientific methods to determine that moose made up a significant, like over half of their diet. So for them, Mitchell was a novel food item. Really tragic. It's insane that it happened. It's the only one thus far, but wow. Coyotes are crazy adaptable. That's the lesson today. Coyotes are crazy adaptable. It is really amazing, but of course there are problems when it becomes a public safety threat and a public safety issue. As natural spaces get smaller and human expansion continues to grow, as all of that happens, the chances of negative encounters are only going to get higher. Coyotes did something kind of unique among larger predatory animals in that they decided to adapt to cities rather than running away from them, which a lot of other animals tend to do. Coyotes were like, alright, cool, this is how we live now. That was their response to a shrinking ecosystem, and it's one that's enabled their survival as a species. It's so important to be safe out there, no matter where you are, to be very mindful, because despite how often we pretend that we are the top of the food chain, the big enchilada, the best that there is, humans can very easily become prey. If you enjoyed this video and you want more bloodthirsty animal content, hit that like and subscribe right now. I am here Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Bye! What really happened? How did the soldiers stop the attack? I don't know. Maybe one day they'll declassify it for me. You know, like the CIA does with their creepy projects? Maybe they'll do that one day with the coyote thing. I don't know.
Meep, meep.